Hello and welcome to Alex's Model Kits. This is an update on the Airfix Hawker Fury that I'm working on, so let's have a look at what progress has been made so far. This is the Airfix 1/48 scale Hawker Fury. It's an old kit, being tooled and first produced in 1980. And being so old, it comes with a few issues that you might expect for a kit of its age. It's a relatively simple kit in terms of parts, not too many to deal with, and sadly a few pieces have gone missing. The cockpit console and a couple of support struts for the tailplane. For the parts that remain, there is a fair bit of flash to deal with, and many ejector pin marks to fill and sand. As for the pilot, the mind boggles. He won't feature in the finished kit. The cockpit console was scratch built from some spare plasticard and then painted with a slight streaking effect to try and emulate a wood finish. Then the console decal was added and varnish was applied over the top. The rest of the cockpit area was a fairly simple construction. The cockpit floor was painted to try and look like plywood, but I wasn't happy with the final effect and will have to work on that in the future. When everything was assembled into the fuselage half, it was all a little cramped, with the joystick being a little too long. This was cut down and placed back into the cockpit at a more acceptable height. The fuselage was then sealed up and the lower wing added for the kit to start to look a bit more like a plane. The age of the kit showed once again with the central wing support assembly having a fairly significant warp. The fix for this was just to use a bit of brute force and firmly fix the lower section to the fuselage one joint at a time to force everything into alignment. The second problem with the central wing support assembly was that the locating pins on the top of each strut were missing. I used a little spare plastic rod to make small pins and used them to fix the upper wing in place. Then the rigging began. I've never rigged an aircraft before, so I wasn't too sure about how best to approach this. I'd seen someone talk about rigging their kit a couple of years ago and tried to recall what they had done. First, I drilled holes at all the anchor points for the rigging. Then I added elasticated thread and fixed it to the lower wing and fuselage. Then, after adding the upper wing, I threaded the elasticated thread through the upper holes and fixed them in place with superglue. I then reinforced the bond for each thread with a dab of PVA glue. Then I trimmed the excess thread and filled the holes. After that I applied the decals, and after applying a few coats of decal fix, I then applied a coat of enamel varnish. I had hoped to add small masts to the top wing by applying decal fix to the decal to get them to fix snugly to the top wing and reveal the location of the holes the mast should be fitted to. But the decals are old, thick and belligerent, and I've been unable to spot the position of these holes. I've also discovered that there should be a hole at the back of the fuselage for one of the tailplane supports to go through, but this hole is completely missing. The final problem I've encountered is that the enamel varnish will not completely dry. I found that if I hold the kit for 30 seconds or more, the varnish starts to become tacky from the warmth of my hand. So the kit has been placed on the shelf to wait for the varnish to completely cure. So there we have it. That's progress so far, progress such as it might be. It's frustrating with the varnish not curing properly. That has been an issue. I have the plane here actually. So there we are. It's kind of getting to the point. The masking tape, just so you know, that's to give me a rough idea of where the holes were for the masts, so that I knew roughly where to look. But as I say, the decals are pretty old and thick, and they just won't seat down against those holes to show me where they should be. The idea was I could then just drill through them and or just pierce through the decal to get the hole, but that's not going to happen. And there is still a tackiness I varnished this kit in around about November of 2017. It's now 31st of March 2018, so that's what, 4 months, 5 months, yeah, 4 or 5 months, and it's still just slightly tacky to touch, so I'm just going to have to leave it on the side for the time being, and hope that over time that varnish properly cures and I can work on the final bits, the rigging at the tailplane area, and also those tailplane struts which are missing or have holes missing as well. So that's it pretty much. That's progress on the Hawker Fury for the time being. You would think by now it would be done, but I kind of think that events have overtaken me on that one, and that's unfortunate. So it sits on the shelf. It sits up there on the shelf, waiting to dry off. And in the meantime, I've started working on a Spitfire, 1/72 scale Spitfire, which I'll do a separate video about at some point in the future. This is an Airfix kit, and I'm modifying it to actually be not the Mark 1 that was in service, but to actually be hopefully a good representation of the prototype, sort of K5054 prototype that first flew and won Supermarine the contract to make the RAF Spitfires. So that's the project on the workbench at the moment. So there we are, short update, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again. Okay, thanks and goodbye.